This is the Party for Socialism and Liberation, a communist political party in the United States that describes itself as a revolutionary socialist organization. In early July, the PSL conducted a webinar titled, "What is Socialism?" First, here's Satyavati, who works as a nurse in Atlanta and is an organizer for the PSL.
Socialism is a system where the working class has political power, and it uses that power to plan the economy and meet the needs of the people and the planet, not profit. And in society today, there are two classes, the billionaire class and the working class.
So according to the PSL, you're either punching a time clock or you're C. Montgomery Burns. When your entire political philosophy requires pretending that the American middle class doesn't exist just to make your rhetoric sound good, it might be time to get a new philosophy.
So under socialism, the billionaire class will not exist. It would be a system that would have no mechanism in place to produce millionaires and billionaires. And the wealth hoarded by the billionaires would be expropriated and brought under public control.
Expropriated? It's adorable when they use these sterilized college campus words to describe government-sanctioned theft. And pay no attention to that phrasing, a system with no mechanism to produce millionaires. What she actually means is a system with no mechanism to build a highly successful business, or scale a new technology, or, employ people. If you make it illegal to build a massively successful company, you haven't just eliminated billionaires, you've eliminated the economy.
And the hoarding of wealth would become illegal.
She talks about hoarding wealth as if billionaires have a giant Scrooge McDuck vault filled with gold coins that they swim in every morning.
The working class becomes the ruling class under socialism.
But historically, the working class never becomes the ruling class under socialism. It's just a tiny handful of ruthless government bureaucrats that become the ruling class, and the actual workers, they just get to wait in longer bread lines.
But Elon Musk is not going to have an epiphany and redistribute that wealth out of the goodness of his heart. That's never going to happen. It will take an organized fight back by the working class, and that's why we are building the PSL.
She's absolutely right. He's not going to do that. Mostly because his wealth isn't sitting in a giant checking account waiting to be Venmoed to the working class. It's tied up in building rockets and manufacturing electric cars and signing the paychecks for over 100,000 employees. But please tell us more about this organized fight back. I'm sure that the richest man in the world is absolutely terrified that a Marxist Zoom webinar is going to take over his gigafactories.
So the productive capacity of the country is owned by the billionaire class. This is how the billionaires maintain power. So, sorry, my AC's broken.
We're gonna seize the means of production and overthrow the global capitalist machine. Also, my air conditioning isn't working. If you can't figure out how to keep your own living room below 80 degrees, you're probably not gonna be able to overthrow the government. Of course, under our current, terribly exploitive capitalist system, you can pull out your smartphone, pay a local HVAC technician, and have that fixed by tomorrow afternoon. But under a utopian socialist system, you'd have to submit a requisition form to the Regional People's Committee for Thermostatic Equality, and then wait 4 to 6 years for the central planners to allocate the necessary copper tubing, and then hope that a cultural worker knows how to install it. I'm just kidding, because in a socialist utopia, air conditioners are illegal. Just ask the Europeans how that's going.
And one of the biggest misconceptions about a socialist government is seeing it as a service provider and the people as passive recipients of services. This is false and wrong. The reorganization of society, including the transition of society to green technology and renewable energy, will be carried out by the people themselves.
Oh, fantastic! So instead of being just a passive recipient of government failure, you get to actively participate in it. And keep in mind that since most diesel-powered machinery is an enemy of the climate, that means the people themselves will be out there in the lithium mines digging up battery components by hand, all for the greater good.
How did you join the socialist movement? And why is it important to go from just holding socialist belief to actually practicing the struggle for socialism?
Thank you, comrade. I think I'll try to keep it on the shorter side, but
Thank you, comrade. I see we're doing the full communist cosplay, huh, Satya?
the reason that I'm a socialist or that I'm in a socialist organization organizing, I'll put it very simply. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I feel that I should put my principles and my values into action.
For most people, putting their principles and values into action might involve volunteering at a food bank or picking up trash alongside a highway, not seizing the means of production.
Fundamentally, we in the PSL, we believe that a revolutionary struggle and a revolution is necessary in order to win socialism in this country.
A revolution, a revolutionary struggle, and a revolution. She managed to cram it in there 3 times in one sentence just to make sure that you got the point. But notice how they casually throw that word around as if they're planning a really aggressive community bake sale.
And as socialists, we believe that it will take a revolutionary struggle to achieve socialism. The ruling class in the US benefits enormously from the capitalist system of exploitation and will not willingly give up its wealth or its power.
Historically, when people refuse to willingly give up their wealth, the socialists resort to any means necessary. And that means violence. But hey, I'm sure that this time, the utopian revolution will be totally peaceful and definitely won't result in secret police, the gulags, or mass graves.
So when we say a revolution, what does that actually mean? So revolution is a process that's smashing the old state and it's creating a new state.
Smashing the old state. That is a very polite and sterile way of saying that you want to completely destroy the United States government, shred the Constitution, and then collapse the entire societal framework. They say it so clinically, as if smashing the state is just like a routine software update.
I think it's very important for us to recognize the possibility and necessity, so the actuality of having a revolution in the United States.
And that was Natalie Harizi, an elementary and middle school classroom teacher and a teacher librarian. You know, when I think of the hardened, battle-tested vanguard necessary to orchestrate a bloody overthrow of the greatest military superpower in human history, my mind immediately goes to the lady quietly shushing kids at the Scholastic Book Fair.
I think it can be hard to sort of see through that and think, well, will we ever be able to have a revolution in the United States? And I do think revolutionary socialists, our answer is yes.
Of course the answer is yes. She literally lives in a self-reinforcing echo chamber where she only talks to other Marxists on Zoom and her captive middle schoolers who have to listen to her to get a passing grade. Reality is not a factor here.
I have been active in my union since I became an educator in 2007. I think, I do now serve as an officer of our union and consider myself to be part of a labor movement that has been doing a lot of great work and also needs to do a lot more.
She's an officer in the teachers union? I know you're shocked.
And I think that it's on us as socialists and as communists, as revolutionaries, to be deeply involved in what, workers organizing in the workplace.
Now, if you're thinking that Natalie is indoctrinating her students with socialist and communist ideology, you'd be 100% correct.
Previously, during the pandemic, I was as a teacher librarian, and we took on extra classes in Zoom school that were sort of different in a lot of ways. I mean, Zoom school was real rough, y'all. If anyone had to teach during that period, it was very tough.
So how did Natalie use that precious, limited instructional time to help her struggling middle schoolers? Was it reading comprehension? Was it math? Nope. It was classic Marxist cinematic indoctrination.
And one of the things we did was we watched Salt of the Earth. So this was 7th and 8th graders and myself, and together we watched this movie and we learned about the making of the movie.
So not only did she screen Salt of the Earth, a 1954 film written, produced, and directed by actual card-carrying members of the Communist Party, she taught her students about how and why it was made. You know, because a bunch of communist screenwriters were blacklisted from Hollywood because Hollywood just didn't understand how great communism actually is.
And if you look at, you can find one of the posters promoting the movie. It says, "At last, an honest movie about American working people, the salt of the earth."
Yeah, because if there's one thing you can always trust for the absolute unvarnished truth, it's a movie poster. Especially a movie poster bankrolled by the International Union of Mine, Mill, and Smelter Workers, which was literally kicked out of the CIO for being a communist front. In her book, I Lost It at the Movies, film critic Pauline Kael wrote that Salt of the Earth is as clear a piece of communist propaganda as we have had in many years.
You can't handle a job, I'll find someone who can. Who, a scab? An American.
Wait a minute, I thought that this was about American working people. I feel so betrayed by these socialists.
And, you know, this movie is about working people. It is a feminist movie. It's a labor movement movie. It's you learn so much about organizing. It's an anti-racist movie, but none of it is dangerous.
Guys, it's not dangerous. It's just a wholesome, family-friendly vehicle for mid-century Marxist talking points written and directed by actual card-carrying members of the Communist Party. And as Pauline Kael writes, it is extremely shrewd propaganda for the urgent business of the USSR, making colonial peoples believe that they can expect no good from the United States, convincing Europe and Asia and the rest of the world that there are no civil liberties in the USA, and that our capitalism is really fascism.
And we all know from our experience that capitalist democracy is a sham.
You see, the more things change, the more things stay the same. So just to recap, an officer in the teachers union who openly advocates for the violent overthrow of the United States government is actively using your tax dollars to indoctrinate 12-year-olds with literal communist propaganda. Of course, if you're a parent who shows up to a school board meeting to complain about it, well, just be prepared to be called a domestic terrorist.
The process of socialist reconstruction will revolutionize the form and function of government, making it truly democratic for the first time. We're talking about a workers' democracy.
Ah yes, a workers' democracy. Very well known for having tons of candidates on the ballot to choose from. Very democratic.
Workers, so that means service workers, factory workers, warehouse workers, tech workers, scientists, healthcare workers like myself, teachers, cultural workers, artists, homemakers, caregivers, and students. Ordinary workers like us will hold the power to make the decisions that impact our lives.
Oh, excellent! So the global supply chain logistics for semiconductor manufacturing are going to be outsourced by a committee of artists, students, and homemakers. What could possibly go wrong?
And socialist revolutions over the last century took place in countries that had to overcome colonial underdevelopment, or societies that were in the early stages of capitalist development.
Ah, the classic excuse. Real socialism has never been tried. She's trying to argue that every other communist regime in history only collapsed into poverty and breadlines because they didn't have enough wealth to start with.
But today, the US is an advanced capitalist economy. So the material conditions exist already in the US to transition immediately to socialism.
Did you catch that? She just openly admitted that you absolutely need capitalism to start a socialist society. And now that the United States has more than enough wealth and infrastructure to go around, there's finally enough money to subsidize that communist collapse. So basically their entire plan is to just let the free market do all of the heavy lifting for 200 years and then swoop in to coast on the fumes.
The new socialist government will take possession of all the existing capitalist banks and create one People's Development Bank.
Yes, one single centralized government-run bank that operates at a level of efficiency, speed, and customer service that makes the post office look like a Formula One pit crew.
Socialists don't claim that a revolution in the US will solve all the social problems overnight, but it can immediately eliminate poverty and guarantee housing, healthcare, education, and childcare.
We can't solve every problem overnight. We're just going to magically provide infinite free housing, free healthcare, free childcare, and instantly eliminate poverty by Tuesday. Because we put it in the Constitution.
It enables the full-speed transition to green energy and lays the groundwork to fight racism, sexism, and bigotry.
Ah, yes, because historically, nothing screams champion of human rights and diversity quite like a 20th century style communist regime.
The socialist reconstruction of society would be the creation of a new constitution. The current U.S. Constitution was drafted by the U.S. slave-owning class, and it enshrines the rights of capital. But the new constitution would enshrine and expand the rights of the working class.
But the very first things that a communist regime does after seizing power is immediately strip the working class of their right to free speech, their right to bear arms, and their right to independently unionize. And sure, you lose your basic human rights, but you gain the expanded right to starve equally.
And millions of people will participate in constitutional conventions or popular constituent assemblies to draft and adopt this new constitution.
The PSL's answer to a constitutional convention is a Zoom meeting involving, say, 3 million people, half of whom are muted, and the other half are just complaining that their air conditioning is broken.
The House of Representatives could be replaced with the National People's Assembly that would not only be made up of delegates elected from local election districts, but would also include delegates from the many mass organizations of millions of workers, students, and more.
The National People's Assembly. Notice the little loophole she sneaks in at the end there. It's not just elected representatives anymore, it's also delegates from quote-unquote mass organizations. In other words, it doesn't matter how you vote locally, because they're just going to pack the legislature with unelected party insiders, Marxist union bosses, and radicalized college students to make sure that they never actually lose a vote.
And the Senate could be replaced by the Assembly of Oppressed Nations to correct the historic injustices imposed on the indigenous peoples and the Black nation. This Assembly of Oppressed Nations will consist of delegates from oppressed nationalities and peoples.
So the utopian vision for a unified, classless, perfectly equal society is to literally segregate an upper chamber of the federal government by race and ethnicity. Makes sense to me. What's your problem? Anyway, that's it for now. Head on over to my super cool merch store at don'twalkrun.shop. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time, if there is next time.